Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. I am now taking over as Charlotte Gannon and I'm here with my dad here. Say hello.
Hello, Charlotte.
So I have a few questions prepared if you want to answer them.
Okay, awesome. So for those that have just tuned in, we've flipped this over and Charlotte, who's my lovely daughter, has come to the studio today and she's going to interview me for a change, and you've prepared some questions, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just get straight into it.
So what jobs did you have before you became a property investor?
Okay. What jobs did I have before I became a property investor? Well, quite a few, really. I've been investing in property for quite a long time, but what I did was I did that whilst I was working my other job. So the jobs that let's start from leaving school, shall we? So when I was at school, I used to work as a pot wash in a local hotel, and I was washing dishes and plates and cleaning up and making sure the kitchens were tidy. And I did that, and I got paid quite well from that. I was really quite hard working from an early age. And then from there, I went to a local dog kennels and I was walking dogs at the weekend and I lost a dog. I lost the dog.
No.
I was walking. This dog was called Merlin, I remember. And I took this dog out of his kennel and it was really happy to see me. It's an old English sheepdog, and it was bouncing around and it was really happy. And then he just turned around and ran and never came back.
No.
I didn't go back after that. I kind of like...
Yeah, I don't think they'd welcome you
I don't know what happened, because that was the days before chips and stuff. I don't know whether the dog came back or not. I literally lost the dog. So from there, I worked in a printing shop during the weekend. And then I left school. And when I left school, I joined the army. And that was really my first proper job. So I went over to Aldershot and joined what was called the Army Catering Corps. And it's called the Logistics now. And did a little bit of time in the army, and then left the army and carried on as a chef, because that was the job that I was doing. Then worked around the country as a chef, got made up to relief manager, and started going to pubs and hotels, looking after the properties whilst the managers were on holiday. And that's where I met your lovely mummy. And I was working as a relief manager at a place called The Fox at Bransford, which is very close to where we live. Do you know it?
I think so.
Yeah. And that's where I met your mum. And then from there, we bought our own pub. We decided that working in pubs for other people wasn't probably the best thing to do, so we went out and bought our own. And then I ran a few pubs, we owned 6 pubs, and we had 85 staff. And this was before you were born. And then I left the pub trade and joined the police. And then for the best part of my adult life, I was in the police. And then I decided, after about 10 or so years being in the police, I needed to make a change. And so I could look after you and your lovely brother, Ben, and went into property full time. So there you go. All of those jobs.
Did you have a few jobs when you were in school? You had a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
you
when I
told
was
me stories with your friends.
Yeah, when I was at school, we had a window cleaning round, right? So me and this guy,
I remember this one.
Me and this guy called Rob Davis. Hi, Rob, if you're listening. I don't imagine you are, but if you are, I'm really sorry. We started a window cleaning round, and I got my dad's there's like an old table, and I put it on a wheelbarrow, and we had some ladders, and it was typically just a kid's weekend thing. And me and Rob went round the estate, and we were charging £3 a house to clean the windows. And after about 6 months, we did really, really well. We got loads of customers. Almost every house on the street were customers, and we were earning loads of money. And I kind of thought, this is interesting. So I said to Rob, look, mate, we're going into our exams, and I've not really got the time to spend on this business because it's going to affect my studying. So I need to stop it. And he said, yeah, I agree. I kind of thinking the same thing. So he went and I carried on. So I took all the money myself and I carried on for years. It was ace. I made loads of money. And that was, yeah. So yeah, we did a couple of other things.
And he's never found out to this day.
I don't think I ever saw him again. I don't really know what happened to him. But this was like when I was 14 or 15 years old.
And didn't you own a burger van?
A burger van? Goodness me, I forgot about that. So that was part-time. So whilst I was working, me and your mum, We bought this little burger van, and we used to go to all the dog shows and all of the young farmers do's and the rallies, and every weekend we were literally flipping burgers. Now that was before Ben was born. It was like a long time ago, and it was just a weekend thing. So we bought this burger van, and I remember at one show we opened the hatch, and all I could see was what felt like thousands of people, and they were all just queuing there for burgers.
Really?
And it was literally. It was just constant for 8 hours, just literally selling burgers. So we did that for ages. But when Mum got pregnant with Ben, that's when we decided to give that up. And instead we were doing properties up then, and we were just selling them on for a profit because it was easier, believe it or not.
Okay, next question. Did you earn a lot then compared to what you earn now?
Earn, as in wages.
Money, yeah.
I think everything is relative. We've got a lot more assets now, so we own a lot of property, and property generally goes up in value, so that grows over time, and then that means that me and Mum can leave that to you and Ben when you're a little bit older, and that means that you've got something then that you can earn an income from, or sell and profit from, or leave to your family. So when I was in the police, it was probably because that was the biggest job, in my adult life that I had. I wasn't earning a particularly huge amount of money. I think the services and certainly, all of the public sector, they're renowned for not being paid very well. So to answer your question, yes, we earn a lot more now, but it's not just about money, because it's about time as well. So when I was in the police, I was away from home. You probably don't remember it an awful lot.
Really?
But I was working weekends, I was working evenings, I was working Christmas. And so all of the times when it's special for your family and you want to be with the family, I was actually away.
Yeah.
So, money is, you can't evaluate everything around, monetary terms. For me, I get a lot more enjoyment about spending time with you and the family and Ben and Mum, and being together and doing things and making those nice memories and going on holidays, rather than saying I get paid more now, if you understand what I mean. So it's a bigger picture. So I'm better off now for all of those things than I was before, and it means I can spend more time with you guys.
And you've had lots of jobs, and I think you've kept this job the most. So what's the best part of your job? What's the key?
So the best part of, I do a lot of things now. So it's not just property investing. We've got software platforms, as you know, and we do training and all of that kind of thing. But I think the main thing is, for me, the best bit about my job is me being free to do and choose what I want to do. Yeah. So I can choose, like today, for example, we're here, you're in the studio with me. You've just broken up for Christmas time. So if I was working before, I would never be able to do that. So that's the one element, is having more freedom and time. The next element is being able to help more people. Now, as a police officer, there's a cliche, I suppose, when we say that I joined the police to pay it forward and to help people. Well, I'm helping a lot more people actually being out of the police than I was when I was in it, believe it or not. So helping tenants get great standard accommodation, and living in really great houses that I wouldn't be able to before. So helping their life and helping them move forwards, helping you guys, because of the time and the money that we earn, we can help you. You go to a really good school, and you're coming along with your singing and your acting, and helping Ben play football, which we'd never have been able to do before, because number one, I was away too much, and number two, we couldn't do it financially. So all of those rolled into one make it a much, much better environment and lifestyle for all of us.
Is there any reason, well, you've probably just said it, but is there a certain reason why you do it? Like just one particular thing?
Well, literally what I've just said. So, for having more time with you and the rest of the family, earning a little bit more money, and just having that more freedom to be able to choose what I want to do, rather than having to go at a certain time, having to complete something, having to come back. So, it's all of that.
And I know you were doing other jobs, you said, when you were actually doing this, but when did you actually start to think, I think I might be a property investor. I think that's a good job for me.
So we've been investing in property since 1997. So really all the way back then, when before you were born, me and Mummy had a house, and we bought it brand new, and we couldn't rent it out because we wanted to move. So we couldn't sell it because we wanted to move, because we paid too much money for it. And if we'd have sold it, we'd have lost money. So we decided to rent it, and then we became landlords, and that was our first landlord experience. And we sold that property a couple of years later, and reinvested it. And we bought Auntie Louise's house, so Mummy's sister's house, because she was in a chain. She wanted to move. She couldn't because somebody pulled out of the chain. So to help her, we bought that house. And then we started buying houses part-time and what we call flipping, which means you buy a house that's run down and you decorate it and you sell it for a profit. So we started doing quite a few of those. So we've always been in property and we've always done property, but actually full-time when I left the police. So what we're looking at now, we're coming into about 8 years full-time in property now, and I decided to leave the police and do it as a full-time job.
And out of all the things in a HMO property investor, what's the hardest thing to get started on when you first started?
It's a really good question. Lots of things, really. So it depends who you talk to. Some people will say the hardest thing is finding deals, property. Some people will say the hardest thing is finding money. Some people will say the hardest thing is actually managing tenants. For me, what is the hardest part of my job? I suppose it's filling the properties, because we've got about, we're just close to about 150 tenants now, and every one of those tenants pays us rent every month, and it's usually an average of about £400. And if we don't have those tenants in those rooms, and that takes money out of our bank account, which means we don't have as much money as we would. So if we've got a lot of what we call voids, and voids are where the tenants aren't in the properties, so they're empty rooms, and if we're not selling them, then it's costing us money all of the time. And I think for us, because of the size of our business, the more voids we have, obviously the bigger the problem. So I think for me personally, that's probably the biggest challenge, is constantly making sure that our team are filling those rooms and making sure that we've got more rooms full than we've got empty.
Okay. And out of the whole entire year, which would you say is more the downfall, and which would you say you get more income?
Yeah, so for us, now this is going to be different for everybody listening, but where we are and the demographic that we operate in, I'll go through the whole year for you. So what we find is January is quiet, because it's just been Christmas, etc. February starts to pick up a little bit, but still isn't that busy. Then we go into March and April, Easter time, and the market starts to lift a little bit and we start to get quite busy. Then we come into the summertime. Now, the summertime is when it all really starts for us. So around about June, July time, it gets really, really busy. And very often we'll be fully occupied, not for long, but we do get fully occupied sometimes. And it starts to get really busy up until around about October. Then it slows down again in October. And November's, really quiet normally. And then we start to get busy again in December for about 2 weeks before Christmas. Bizarrely, we have like a bit of a flurry. I think people want to get into their house before Christmas time so they can settle. And then the cycle starts. So in terms of being more occupied, it's the summer months. So June, July, August, September, October are our busiest periods for us. And I put that down to, the student market starts to move around that time, even though we don't do students, but it kind of starts the whole market moving. People start to move out, start to get different jobs, etc. in the summertime.
Okay. How many tenants do you have?
Well, I don't know exactly, but anything up to 150 at any one time. So obviously, depending on how many voids we've got, but as you know, I don't operate the letting side of the business as much as I used to now, because we've got a team of people that do that for us. But I think we have anything up to, with our new projects, 150 if we were fully occupied.
As you say, roughly 150. How many houses are needed for this many people? So how many houses do you have?
I don't know.
Roughly?
I don't know. So I don't know. It's quite funny actually. So I don't honestly know how many houses we've got, but it's when people say, how many houses have you got? It's a kind of irrelevant, because if you've got a really good business product and you could have 10 houses that make more profit than 30 houses, depending on how you've got them set
Yeah.
up and how you are operating them. So when people say how many houses have you got, I'd rather people say, well, look, what's your bottom line? How much money are you making, type of thing, rather than judging everybody on how many houses. Because I know people that have got 150, 160 houses that work all day long, 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, and are not making as much money as people that have got half the size portfolio because of the leverage and because of how they run their business. So I've kind of answered that in a politician's sort of way. How many houses we got? I don't know. 50, something like that, maybe 45 or 50. 45 or 50 houses, I think, with our flats and our holiday lets and our commercial property and what have you. So, but it, when you sort of look into business and you start to study business, it's not just about how big you are, it's about how you manage that bottom line and that profit.
Yeah. So out of all the houses you own, what was in the worst state and what was the hardest house to refurb and get better out of all of them?
Well, that's a really easy question for me to answer. So when I spoke to you earlier about the property that we had, our first one, that me and your mum had, and then we rented it. When we moved from there, we moved to a little cottage in a village called Rushwick, which is where you were born.
Yeah.
And we moved into this house, and it was a little cottage called Whitehall Cottage, and it wasn't dilapidated per se. There were people living there, but it was really rough. And we bought that. I can't remember. I think we paid like £80,000 for it, and it took me and Mum about 2 or 3 years, with the help of Nanny and Grandad, to redecorate that property. We had to put a driveway because it didn't have a drive, so you couldn't get a car on it. You had to walk from the road. We had to put new roof on it. We had to put new windows in it, and we really ripped it back, and it was really, really smelly. And I think they had dogs that were incontinent and got into the floorboards, and the house just stank. It really did. And there was rubbish everywhere. I don't think they put any rubbish in any bags. They just put it in the garden. So over the years, we managed to do it up into a really lovely home.
Yeah.
And then you were born and Ben was born, and we had to move them because we needed a bigger house. So we rented it for ages, I think we rented it out for 5 or 6 years at least. And because we weren't there and it was an old property, the damp started to come back and it started to get quite dilapidated again. So then we had a phase 2 and we knocked it down. We knocked the property down. You remember, because you came to me, came with us.
School.
Yeah.
We went
And we knocked it down and rebuilt it. So we spent more time and love on that property, but now it's stunning. We don't own it anymore. We sold it. I think we sold it for 400,000. We bought it for 80. We did spend, probably spent about 100 on it. But it was a great property. It saw the birth of you and your brother, and we had some great times there. But that was probably the project that we put a lot of effort into over the years. But there's also other deals that we've done. We bought a whole block of flats 2 years ago, or maybe even 3 now, coming into 3 years, and we're still working on those because it's sort of one tenant leaves, we'll redecorate the flat and redo it, and just keep doing that. So that's quite a big project as well. So yeah, those are probably the 2 of the ones that stick out.
I remember a few memories from them.
Yeah.
So as you're an ex-police officer, in all of your job, does this help you in any of it? Does it?
Yeah, absolutely. So being a police officer, one of the fundamental things that you have to do is be able to listen and talk to people, regardless of how angry they are, or how old maybe they are, or how young they are. So you have to have the ability to adjust your level of conversation to suit the person you're talking to. And when it comes to tenants, it's no different. So tenants are people, and people have needs and wants, and people have their own values. And, it depends on what the problem is that you're talking to the tenant about. But being an ex-police officer allows me to adapt all of those skills into managing tenants proactively in a very fair and firm manner, in order to make sure that they're happy and they are left alone, and of course we get paid.
Okay. And by the very end of 2020, what are the goals? What do you want to say, yeah, I achieved that, I did that?
Well, I have not set my goals yet for 2020, so it's a great question. What we normally do is at the beginning of the year, we'll sit down as an office and we'll work out our targets for the year and then reverse engineer them. So we'll get to X amount that we want to turn over by the end of the year and then work out how we're going to get that. Now, in terms of property, I don't know if I want any more. I'm whispering so nobody can hear. I'm not entirely sure whether we need any more property this year.
Yeah, you're doing really well.
We've got a lot of projects on at the moment. We've just converting a police station. We've just bought a bungalow that we are turning over. We've just got a commercial conversion project that we've just taken on. I think in terms of tenants, I think 150 for us is about right. I don't really want that many more because what we find, Charlotte, is that we end up competing against ourselves.
Yeah, you're kind of at that stage where you don't really need to get better. You're at a good stage.
Yeah, I think it's a case of more fine-tuning and then developing our other arms of our business. So we've got Tenant, which is our property management platform. That's doing exceptionally well. We've got thousands of landlords that have signed up to Tenant. And what I'd like to do is help even more people because that enables others to leverage their time. So a big focus on Tenant next year and a big focus on, of course, our existing training company as well. We've got a great reputation in the training industry for taking good care of our students and being there for them, making sure that we deliver on all of our promises. So it's just maintaining all of that and let's just see what else happens along the way.
And what's your main advice for a property investor in training who wants to be like you in a few years? What's your main advice to get started with?
Just start. I think most people will be you won't know this, but I mean, people that might be listening, you always start a diet on a Monday. You say, start Monday.
Yeah.
And then Monday comes and maybe you don't. You have that bar of chocolate. You think, it's okay. Well, I'll start next Monday. So rather than saying I'll start again now, I'll start next Monday. And then Monday comes around and the whole cycle starts again. And that's why most people fail when it comes to personal goals and dieting. So I think my best advice is just start. Stop thinking about it. Start doing it because there's never going to be a right time. Don't listen to all the negativity because people don't care about you. Only you should care about you because nobody else really does, if I'm honest. I don't mean, obviously, with you personally, because, of course, I care about you. But most people that tell you it's not going to work and you'll fail and blah, 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 that's just a reflection of themselves. That's not you. So do it for yourself because nobody else will do it for you. So literally put one foot forward and say, right, today I'm going to start and this is what I'm going to do.
Thank you. They're actually all my questions there. So thank you for joining me.
That's absolutely no problem at all. That's been so much fun. Let me talk about you. Are you ready for Christmas?
Yes, definitely.
For those listening on the podcast, Charlotte's got a little Christmas jumper on and she's got reindeers on. She's got baubles on her ears. If you show you earrings, can you see on the camera? Little baubles on her earrings. So it's all Christmassy. And what are you expecting, Charlotte, for Christmas this year?
I really want an iPhone 11.
I told you you're not having one.
Or a puppy.
A puppy? Can't have another puppy. Our house isn't big enough. Well, look, thank you so much for interviewing me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And it's been awesome you coming to work with me today as well. And this is what we can do when we invest in property. We can manage our own day and spend more time with the people that mean the most to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And have a great Christmas, everybody.